Welcome back, troglodytes, to the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today we have a 1987 Gibson Les Paul Studio Standard. Now, this isn't the first time a Studio Standard has been on my channel, and it sure as heck isn't the last time there will be one, because I love these little hidden 80s gems. These really are like a cult classic. If you don't know about them, you need to. So, the Les Paul Studio, first introduced in 1983, the first 2 years were actually pure alder guitars before they switched back to mahogany. But at the same time as their introduction was 2 higher levels of a Studio. They were called the Studio Standard and the Studio Custom. What's the difference? Yeah, you get binding and a maple top. So the Studio Standards, they have your single ply binding around the body, as well as your binding on the neck, and the Studio Customs, well, they get that 7-ply binding, and other than that, they're pretty much the exact same guitars. It all comes down to aesthetics. But we've already learned all that in other episodes, so what is the story with this bizarre sparkle blue Les Paul? This is when watching my show can actually come in handy, because I saw this on Reverb. It was there for like 3 or 4 days. I'm surprised nobody bought it. I saw it had binding on the neck, and then I instantly knew that there had to be binding along this body, because the seller had said it was refinished. So sure enough, when I get this guitar, I scrape away the finish, and yep, the binding is still there. Now, buying a refinished guitar online is scary for multiple reasons. One, you have no idea what is hiding under this paint. For example, you could get this guitar and find that there's a headstock repair under here. Most times if you take a look at it in the light just right, you'll be able to tell for sure. But sometimes it's just a case of somebody wanted a blue guitar and there's nothing funny going on. The reason why this one was refinished, I'm guessing, is because something happened to the finish on the back. You can see all the wood grain, so that means if you were to strip the finish off of this, you would likely have no finish at all on the back, but you would still have the original finish on like the top, but it's probably worn in an area or two. That's part of the unknown and the reason why I didn't strip it. And the other reason why buying a refinished guitar online sight unseen is kind of bad is you never know how good of a refinish job it is. In photos, I could tell this was amateur hour. It's nothing professional. I wasn't expecting much. But sometimes you get these and they smell like spray paint, or it's just a really awful refin job. It doesn't feel nice. This one I would classify just as amateur. It's not the worst refinished guitar I've ever seen. It just kind of has like a matte feel to it. So it's kind of like a satin Les Paul Studio. It's not a bad feeling finish by any means, but I don't know. Not everybody's gonna dig this bowling ball sparkle blue finish. Personally, if I was gonna keep this guitar, I would continue scraping the binding away. That way we could see it on the top and the sides. And then I think this would actually look okay. Maybe give it a gloss clear coat too. If you're curious what the original finish was, it was actually Ferrari red. Now how do I know this? Well, in the control cavity I used a little bit of chemical stripper and I got the refin job off to find it is Ferrari red. The magic behind these 80s studios though lies in the pickups. And thankfully, we have the original ones in this guitar. They are very late Tim Shaw PAFs. And if you know anything about those, you know they're worth quite a bit of money and they sound fantastic. Now, when I had gotten this, it had a Seymour Duncan in the bridge. And when I first played this guitar, I was like, yeah, okay. It's another guitar. It's good. Nothing extraordinary, though. But I put that bridge pickup back in here and this guitar just transformed into one of the nicest sounding ones I've had. I know it just sounds like a marketing pitch. Oh, it's the best guitar I've ever had, but I'm being serious. This guitar does that whole chuggy Metallica stuff great. I think it's a combination of having awesome pickups with a finish that I'm not necessarily worried about dinging or scratching up. I've always preferred a satin feeling neck instead of a gloss one. So I think this guitar is just kind of a weird, all the stars are kind of aligning in kind of a crooked line, but they're aligning to make an awesome guitar. The studio standards and studio customs are actually slightly thinner than a Les Paul standard. If I remember correctly, I think it's like 1/8 of an inch, so it's not a lot, but it makes these instruments a more manageable weight as compared to other guitars from this era. So now that we know the story behind this Les Paul, let's go ahead and hear how it sounds. We know how it sounds, let's go ahead and review its condition. This will probably take a while to go over the condition. You don't have any breaks to the headstock that I can see. Now you might see this little line here and go, yep, that's a headstock break. It's not. It's not really even a scratch. It's more like an indentation mark. Nothing to worry about from there. Now, one thing to worry about, though, is your truss rod is like at the end of its life. It needs to be reset, so keep that in mind. You've got beautiful binding along the rosewood fretboard. I dig the dot inlays when it has binding. I don't dig them when it doesn't though. So that's kind of why I do like these standards and customs. There is fretwear. I'm not going to say it's minor. Some of the areas might be considered heavy, but the guitar played just fine for me. I don't think you have to necessarily do anything right away for these frets. If you decide to strip the finish off of this, make sure you plan on a full refin, because I can see there's some light damage underneath the guitar right here, like some nicks and dings, maybe to the original Ferrari red. I'm not really sure what you would find under here. I thought it'd make a fun video if I did that, but stripping the paint off of one guitar was enough for me for a lifetime. But the binding is underneath here if you scrape it off. Again, you have your original pickups back in here. They've been in and out. I've resoldered the bridge pickup. Your 3-way toggle switch, your output jack, that's all been replaced. It looks like you have error correct pots, but inside the case there's like 2 tiny pots, so that probably means there was something else in this guitar at one point in time. The wiring has been amateurly touched up multiple times, but it does still work at this point. It looks like maybe a treble bleed mod on the tone pots. Back of the headstock, the serial number is there. It looks like 811175505, maybe 605. It's kind of hard to read, but if you were to take the finish off, you can definitely see it. I've looked at it long and hard to make sure there are no cracks or repairs under there. If there is one, it's a very professional repair, but I honestly doubt there is. You do see some stand rash marks along the side of the neck though. Beautiful slim 60s neck profile on this one. Nothing too much to mention on the neck except for up here. It's like something was sticky on the neck. I've definitely rubbed that down to the point where it's not sticky anymore, but the feeling is different right there. Back of the guitar, I'm guessing this is where they started trying to refinish the guitar, and they did it the proper way by actually stripping the finish off of it, and then they're like, yeah, that's a waste of time. So they just went ahead and covered the rest of the original finish. And I say that because once again you can see the wood grain underneath the spray paint job or whatever this stuff is. Take a look around the sides. I mean, condition's not necessarily pertinent to this guitar because whoever's gonna get it is either going to be rocking it really hard because they just love this guitar the way it is, or it's gonna be a project candidate. So I'm guessing somebody's gonna take this and convert it into something really cool. Now we'll do a blacklight test. Obviously it's not going to glow because it's not the original nitro finish, but we can at least look to see if there's anything to note, but not really. So the finish on this is not professional, but I wouldn't say it's the worst thing in the world either. Well, I guess our headstock still glows at least. And I guess that's kind of important to look at, because if there was a complete break, you would be able to see where like the face of the headstock was touched up or something. So you've got the original finish on the face, but everything else has been redone. This guitar has a slightly later Gibson USA case. I guess it's technically possible this could be the original case if it sat around in a store for a while, because the brown Gibson USA case kind of came out in the very late 80s, like around 89 or so. This one's missing the combo lock top piece, but you've got 2, 3, and a 4th latch. And it's got wear and tear all over the top Tolex. Definitely a well-worn case. I guess now that I'm looking in the inside, this is like a mid-90s case, so definitely not original to this guitar. In fact, it might even be slightly later than that even. But it holds the guitar well. It's got good heel support, double neck rest. Inside the case sleeps 2 pots. They look like they're to like EMG pickups or something. I don't know what those are about, but they're there because I don't want them. If you think you might be interested in being the next owner of this refinished 87 Studio Standard, the last year of production, feel free to check out the link in the description to take you to my reverb ad. Thank you, Troglodytes, for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.